granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. So, before we bid a final fond farewell to this year's Tommy Robinson March, let's just talk about how many people attended, because the numbers quoted are absolutely astonishingly separate depending on which newspaper or source you're choosing. The Daily Express says official estimates range between 100 and 150,000. And it says the right-wing activist vehemently disputes that figure. He says there's a lot more than that, of course. Judging from the photos I've seen, it does look like a lot more than 150,000, but the report from the Express is just about the most sympathetic that I've seen. It says here, Tommy Robinson says there were 3 million people there, calling it the largest protest in British history. Only the security services will know the exact number, but we're getting so many weird stories from other sources that I tend not to believe what the media are saying, even the most sympathetic. Police estimates put the attendance at about 110,000, a figure Mr. Robinson denounced as a deliberate undercount by legacy media. The only really satisfying part of this is that the Nakba rally, which took place on the same day, that has been estimated to have collected, even by the most sympathetic, around 5,000, which is considerably less. I'll show you some pictures in a little while. Aerial analysis by The Guardian, of course, suggested 50,000, while France 24 estimated it as 150,000. But they were looking at the pictures of the road, the street. They weren't looking at the people who were already in, so far as I can tell, the people who were already in Parliament Square. And there would have been other people who didn't want to go on that long, slow crocodile and might have come in from a lot of other streets. The Spectator says that this is wrong. Millions didn't attend the United Kingdom rally. They say it was estimated just 60,000 turned out, using CCTV and helicopter footage. Well, again, it's so difficult to work this out. It seems like, depending on your political opinions, you pick a number, double it, and then give it out as the truth. But what is not in doubt is the composition of the two different sorts of demonstrators. Now, first of all, this is the Unite the Kingdom March, and this is the Nakba March. And, yeah, there's a sort of qualitative difference here. Whereas the people on this march are walking and waving flags maybe, but holding flags, these people are jumping up and down. And they're far more crowded together. And also, very, significantly, I think, people in this march... Let's see if I can pause this. Good. People in this march are all wearing the same thing and all jumping up and down in unison. And let's hear some sound. I don't know whether you noticed, but they are not only all jumping up and down, they're jumping up and down to the beat of a drum, and they're all chanting the same thing all the time. And as I said, they're all wearing the same thing. The Unite the Kingdom March they're all wearing different things, and except for the flags which they're waving, there's nothing instructing them about their movements. There's no drum beats. It's a lot of individuals joining together to make a demonstration. Whereas this is a lot of clones together to form a demonstration. If I can try to make a qualitative difference between these two different groups. Now, they may think they're being frightfully edgy by dyeing their hair pink or growing weird shaped beards or whatever. But here, they have the same symbolism, the Palestine flag, they have the same keffiyeh, and they're all, as with a sort of grey massive uniform of as one, including their physical movements, because they're all responding to this drumbeat. There's a tribal aspect to that, as opposed to a communal aspect to this. I was quite impressed by that. Now, Winston Marshall interviewed people from both sides. That was quite interesting in itself. People on the United Kingdom march were maybe often, look, I'm sorry, I'm an English teacher, or I was an English teacher. Well, I still am, I suppose. A lot of them were grammatically very dodgy, but logically impeccable. I also taught logic, you see, so I appreciate good logic. The Nakba March, let's have just remind you of that. Here we go. The ones he interviewed were often grammatically dodgy, but logically all over the place. And there were two very reasonable people who were talking to Marshall, and one of them actually, hang on, let me see if I can find him. This lady here was very reasonable. She had political opinions I didn't approve of, but she put her thoughts together very...
Right.
Because I do believe our government is funding Israel and funding this genocide in Gaza. Voted Labour, so I suppose I was very for Keir Starmer. I don't agree with the things that Labour have done. I think there's quite a lot of things, for example, cutting PIP. I mean, I didn't vote for that, and that is massively affecting me. I think I'm not pleased with the way the government is going at the moment, but I must say I don't think voting reform is the way to go.
She had political opinions I didn't approve of, but I think she just has the wrong idea there. But she was putting things together reasonably, and then this fellow here...
Why have you put your union flag up?
Well, one, I'm half-half, and two, this is not about us versus them. This is about... The reason they're marching is the same reason we're marching. There are a bunch of elites who are manipulating the system to hurt those that they don't care about.
When you say they're marching, you mean Tommy Robinson's march?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's not the reason I put that up, though.
Okay, what's the reason you put that up?
Because I'm half-half and I want to represent both. I want to show that this is not along partisan lines or anything.
Oh.
This is us humans noticing other humans suffering, just like their march is watching that as well. And so they're trying to say, this is wrong. We're all just human.
Yeah.
We all just want to live in peace. Stop bombing us and stop not listening to the people on the ground here.
Yeah. And why do you think there are so few union flags here?
Because the problem is people mix government with the people.
You see, he was making a lot of sense. In my opinion, he was on the wrong march. He seemed like a really decent fellow. Again, I disagreed with some of the way he got evidence together. As far as I'm concerned, he was adding 2 and 2 and making 5. But I suspect it's more like the information he got was 2 and 3 to make 5, if you see what I mean. But the thing about the Nakba march generally, let's get back to The Guardian, so few people would actually talk to Winston Marshall. Some of them did, but then he said at one point some of the organisers or stewards or whatever were making life so difficult for him and the team who were filming him that he decided that they better leave because the situation was getting quite scary. That did not happen on the Unite the Kingdom march, which everybody was really pleased to talk to him. So I would be, I'm going to leave a link to his video so you can check him out. Now, to be fair, the people on the Nakba side, oh, by the way, in case you don't know what Nakba means, it was a phrase, it's the Arabic word for catastrophe, and it was used about the event of Israeli independence by an Arab commentator who used the word as because it was from the Arab point of view a military catastrophe. That is, they failed to kill all the Jews that they were going for. They failed to destroy all the Jewish settlements that they wanted to destroy, and they were pushed back to borders that they thought that they were going to absorb. So that was the Nakba, the catastrophe. Later on, that was taken up by the likes of Yasser Arafat, not as a failed genocide, but as the displacement of what he was pleased to call Palestinians, because that was a new invention as well. The KGB thought that one up. I'm not going into that now. But the stewards were worried that Winston Marshall was from GB News and that they would clip the news to make it seem like they'd said what they hadn't said. Now, some of them would have been worried about that. You know that thing I was once given this precious gem by a Jamaican friend, actually, who said, when you point your finger at someone, so here I'll point at the camera, when you point your finger at someone, just remember you have 3 fingers pointing back at you. I thought that was a really profound and sort of very Jamaican way of talking about that particular projection characteristic that every human being has at some time or another. So the stewards, I think, were worried that GB News would clip the news to make it look like they'd said what they hadn't said, and that's because they're on the left, and they are likely to do that themselves. The BBC, for instance, did that with Trump, famously, if you remember. I wonder what's happened to Trump's threat to sue them for that. It's probably still proceeding somewhere along the line. But there's another possibility for people in the Nakba march. Another reason why the stewards were worried about Winston Marshall asking questions, because he was going to be asking questions wherever he came from. He was going to be asking questions that would force people to answer them, and very often to think. Now, there are a few people who were answering the questions, and it's quite obvious they weren't thinking. They were just cut and pasting pre-formed ideas. But the problem is, if you get the odd intelligent person, like this guy here, and you ask them the right questions, it might start him actually thinking. And perhaps because those stewards know that the arguments for what has been going on around Israel right now, the arguments for the what they call the resistance and what I call a pogrom, they know that the arguments are a bit shaky. They don't want people to think about that too much. So if somebody's there asking logical questions, you're going to lose some adherents if there are enough of them get the right questions and start thinking. So let's look at this, for instance. David Lammy being forced to think. This is reported in The Express. LBC host, I'm sorry, none of this seems to be loading, so I'll just read it out. But this is David Lammy. LBC host Nick Ferrari didn't hold back when it came to asking David Lammy about his stance on the Unite the Kingdom march. Lammy had written a post on X which stated the organisers were spreading hatred and division, which is quoting Keir Starmer, actually, so it's obviously a party line that they had cooked up, just like these guys had cooked up their party line. And they do not reflect the Britain I'm proud of, which is, again, straight out of Keir Starmer's famous pre-demo speech, where this ex-police officer here, Peter Blexley, said Starmer wanted chaos and the crowd didn't take the bait, which is true. The crowd acted marvellously, which is no more than I'd expected, actually. They do not reflect the Britain I'm proud of, yes, straight out of Keir Starmer's speech. Ferrari then asked him, how do you know? Did you attend it? And Lammy paused for a moment, I suppose that's where he paused, and explained that he's based in central London and is very aware of the protests. Yeah, and you know what? There are some Jews who are based in central London and they are very aware of these protests. But they're not allowed to say that there is a proportion who are, well, bordering on the psychopathic, if not actually over the edge. So this is really slimy. He went on to say that 43 arrests were made during that day. And Nick Ferrari said, yeah, but how many from the Unite the Kingdom? And how many from the Nakba March? And David Lammy didn't really answer that one. He couldn't. He did say 11 of them were for hate speech. Ferrari then asked if the 43 arrests were all linked to the Unite the Kingdom demonstration, prompting the first stutter from Lammy, who stated it was over the course of the weekend and there was another protest. So then he had to admit that 43 arrests were made over the course of the weekend, which means anybody, including anybody who just got arrested randomly somewhere else in London. And that would have included Sunday, when the Unite the Kingdom march had ended 24 hours before. So he was, well, lying by omission. What do you call it? Being economical with the truth. So we still don't really know how many were from the UTK march and how many from the Nakba march. But the UTK march was like, what, 10 times the size of the Nakba march. And then he said he hasn't seen the full breakdown. I'll tell you what, you and I, what do you think? Do you think that he hasn't seen the full breakdown? Yeah? Well, I'll tell you what, if you do think he hadn't seen the full breakdown, contact me, email me. I have a great deal on a bridge. So, yeah, we're left with 3 questions. How many were actually there? There might have been fewer than there had been in the first one, but they might not. There might have been a lot more. The mainstream media aren't going to give us the correct figures, whatever. So I suspect that it was, judging from the pictures I've seen, possibly as much as 750,000 and a million. That's from what I saw, but then I only saw what were being filmed. Maybe the figures will come out sometime over the next few weeks. The Labour government has cooked up its own narrative, starting with Keir Starmer's priming the pump speech, released, I believe, probably Thursday or Friday, and full of lies. And then remember the Amnesty International Tommy Robinson clone type, but not as tidy as Tommy Robinson, you have to understand. So there's all of that. And then there's the Winston Marshall interviews, which it was a very good study of what was going on the ground. So that's quite good to look up. And the Guardian, despite itself, had to show and really, honestly, just look at that. It's like a grey blob, isn't it? And this is like a colourful celebration. It's such a difference. And whatever the left thinks about this, I'm quite sure that the police who were given the detail of dealing with the UTK march were breathing sighs of relief. And the ones who got stuck with the Nakba march probably reckoned they'd drawn the short straw. OK, well, that's a good place to stop the video, isn't it? Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.